Having tonight of a 6-story building that collapsed today in Westlands. This is one of the stories we'll be bringing you later on in this bulletin. Another story, of course, that will be coming also later in the bulletin is a landslide that happened in a village in Mukurweini, Nyeri County. An 8-month-old baby died in the incident. As you can see, the landslide that happened last night, of course, following the heavy downpour. Now, this among some of the stories we'll be having tonight. Let's also have a look at other stories making headlines tonight. Raila Mudavadi war of words gets nasty. One person feared dead as Westlands building collapses. Prime Minister Raila moves to sort out NHIF board mess. Still on KTN Prime, 3 children killed in Marsabit land conflict.
Welcome. The simmering tension between Raila Odinga and Musalia Mudavadi burst in the open today when spin doctors for the two political allies turned foes exchanged harsh words in a no-holds-barred contest.
The Raila camp fired the first salvo when it sought to discredit Mudavadi's democratic credentials, asking the DPM to explain his role in a series of scandals that rocked the country, among them Golden Bag.
But in a swift rejoinder, the Mudavadi team threatened to unleash corruption allegations against the Prime Minister, citing the maize and Kazi kwa Vijana schemes, and accused their rivals of violent tendencies. KTN's Aaron Ochieng reports.
It is just until last month that Raila Odinga-Musalia Mudavadi combination was ranked by pollsters as the best bet by Kenyans to take over mantle of leadership after elections. Few weeks later, the combination is no more. But instead, after a fallout between the two, it is now a full-scale war of words aimed at discrediting each other in the eyes of would-be voters. Musalia Mudavadi yesterday asked Raila to retire from politics to give Kenyans a fresh start. In response, Raila in a statement says he's responsible for Musalia's political resurrection after 2002 fall of KANU. He says, and I quote, "The DPM is ungrateful despite having been redeemed and polished." Raila says Mudavadi should not count himself among the clean Kenyans since he carries with him some unfinished shadows of corruption. Raila says we shall invite him to explain a lot of things, among them his role as the confluence of Anglo leasing and golden affairs and the mystery of 16 billion Kenya shillings. Raila goes ahead to label Mudavadi as a lucky pampered prince who has got a smooth political career that was only tested once in 2002, where he failed miserably. The PM says in a statement, Mudavadi's tantrums are those of a spoiled child who is used to free things. Mudavadi left ODM citing lack of democratic space and a determined inner circle within the Orange Party to block his presidential bid on the party's ticket. Raila dismisses Mudavadi assertions, calling Mudavadi a coward of competition. Raila says UDF poses no test for Mudavadi. He says, and I quote, "Since 2002, Mudavadi lives under a pathological fear of democratic processes. He has now invented all manner of excuses against ODM and PM before bolting to non-competitive environment." But in a rejoinder, Mudavadi through his press office says he cannot lend his ears to ODM. He says, and I quote, "We are not interested in them wasting our time in useless verbal exchanges. We are not seeking their vote, neither do we require their vote." On the integrity question posed by Raila, Mudavadi threatened to expose what he claims are Raila's hidden corrupt deals. Mudavadi says, "In the lead up to the election, we may choose to tell stories about corruption, and it will not be propaganda. We have snippets of them in the maize, Kazi kwa Vijana, NSSF, and NHIF scams. Mudavadi also dismisses Raila's lobby group, calling itself Friends of Raila, saying the agenda is not clearly defined. He says Kenyans can name those whose second name is violence. We may be arguing with the militia in the guise of a lobby group ready to pounce. Saturday last week, supporters of Raila and Mudavadi clashed at a funeral in Sabatia, something Mudavadi says the Raila campaign has all but admitted they imported goons at a funeral in Sabatia, where they unleashed unthinkable terror on mourning mothers, old men and innocent bystanders. It is clear that Kenyans have not seen the last of this bitter exchange of words between the two former allies. Aaron Ocheng, KTN Prime.
Well, the saga surrounding the National Health Insurance Fund took a new twist today when Prime Minister Raila Odinga overruled Medical Services Minister Professor Anyang' Nyong'o and suspended the entire pending investigation into allegations of massive corruption within the fund. The Premier's decision comes only a day after Nyong'o overturned a similar directive by the acting head of civil service, Francis Kimemia.
Though Francis Kimemia has not gained his predecessor's imposing authority, the fact still remains that he is the voice of the government. And Professor Anyang' Nyong'o's attempt to overthrow his dismissal has landed him in more problems than he had hoped for.
I don't want my train of thought to be derailed by Kimemia.
On Monday afternoon, the Medical Services Minister was forced to swallow his words after the Prime Minister Raila Odinga made this announcement, which was in tandem with Kimemia's directive issued on Friday, the 4th of May 2012. And though Nyong'o was dead set against a caretaker committee being formed in place of the suspended board,
there will be no caretaker board. I am the appointee, and I'm the only one who can gazette an caretaker board.
I've also put in place a caretaker committee which consists of several permanent secretaries.
The Premier went ahead and formed one, which is to be chaired by Professor Mutuma Mugambi, and the interim chief executive officer is the Deputy Secretary of the Ministry of Medical Services, Aden Aden. In their interim capacities, the chairman and the CEO will be assisted by a representative from the Office of the President, Office of the Prime Minister, the permanent secretaries of the State for Public Service, Finance and Labour. Speaking before the Prime Minister's announcement, teachers' body NAT opposed a caretaker team.
A caretaker committee will not represent the workers, but the interest of the appointing authority. One person.
But in an effort to bring all stakeholders on board, the PM announced that the caretaker board will also include representatives from organizations outside government, which are the Kenya National Union of Teachers, the Kenya Medical Association, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, and a representative from the Federation of Kenya Employers.
I've also appointed the Efficiency Monitoring Unit in the Office of the Prime Minister to carry out investigations into the conduct of affairs of NHIF.
The main roles of the caretaker committee will be to appoint a reputable and independent audit firm to conduct investigations in regard to the award of contracts, investments and management systems in the corporation, and recommend a new system for the rollout of the healthcare scheme that will be suitable and acceptable to all stakeholders. Catherine Omwanto, KTN Prime.
The Kalamani Member of Parliament, Boni Halwale, now says he will be introducing a motion of no confidence in Parliament against the Medical Services Minister Anyang' Nyong'o over his role in the NHIF scandal. Nyong'o has, however, labelled such attempts as a political ploy to undermine the Orange Democratic Movement. KTN's Edith Kimani has more on this story.
It appears the drama at the National Health Insurance Fund is unrelenting. What began as opposition to implement new contribution rates to the health fund has now become a political affair. Minister for Medical Services, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, claims Head of Civil Service, Francis Kimemia, and COTU Secretary General, Francis Atwoli, have taken what is happening at NHIF out of context in order to discredit him and his party. Nyong'o claims that in a meeting attended by Atwoli and Kimemia, it was alleged that the move to increase NHIF contributions was a plot by the Orange Democratic Movement to raise money for elections.
It was further said that as the Minister for Medical Services, I usually travel abroad, like I went to South Africa, to bank money taken from the NHIF. The CEO of the NHIF, Mr. Kerechi, is my accomplice, and that is why I'm protecting him.
Nyong'o further claims that the ongoing crisis at NHIF has been engineered as part of a wider plan to derail ODM ministries.
Similar allegations or allegations of similar kinds have been made in other ministries in this government, and I have not seen Mr. Kimemia taking over the responsibility of those ministers.
All right. However, as Nyong'o introduced this new twist to the NHIF scandal, he received a fresh blow from Ikolomani MP Boni Khalwale, who says he will move a vote of no confidence against him in Parliament following the allegations of gross mismanagement of funds at the National Health Insurer.
We will move a motion of no confidence so that Professor Nyong'o can be put under pressure to exonerate himself, exonerate his big brothers, and exonerate his side of government.
And if the guilt cannot be punished, I'm sure that society is prepared to punish them.
As the political rhetoric gains momentum on the scandal, fresh revelations into the dubious NHIF allocations continue to emerge. The Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union released a list of supposed ghost hospitals yesterday, which received huge sums of money from NHIF. A spot check by KTN confirmed that Likoni Coast Clinics, which got 4 million shillings, Imperial Bank Clinics, which was awarded 4 million shillings, and Kiambu Town Clinics, which got 3.2 million shillings, are all non-existent. KMPDU has now added its voice to those calling for the resignation of the Medical Services Minister, along with all those involved in the mismanagement of taxpayer money running into hundreds of millions of shillings. Edith Kimani, KTN Prime.
That story brings us to tonight's big question, which we ask you whether you believe Nyong'o should take political responsibility for the NHIF mess.
Well, send your comments beginning with a yes or no to our SMS number 8040. We'll sample some of your comments at the end of this live newscast.
Well, focusing on a different story now, which has to do with the constituency development funds for the past year and how tax money has been used. Noah Cheno joins us in studio. Noah.
Thank you very much, Sophia and Michael. Now, the National Taxpayers Association has released a new ranking 34 constituencies in terms of the usage utilization of the Constituency Development Fund given out in the financial year 2009-2010. And according to the latest NTA rankings of the 34 constituencies, Gatanga's Peter Kenneth is still the best performing member of Parliament in terms of CDF usage. Gatanga MP Peter Kenneth can account for almost every single shilling of the money given to him as CDF in 2009-2010. At number 2 out of the 34 constituencies ranked by the NTA is Wendanye, with its MP Thomas Mwadegu also able to account for almost every single shilling given to him in 2009-2010. At number 3 out of the 34 constituencies ranked is Taveta's Naomi Shaban, who can account for 99.6% of the funds given to her as CDF in the financial year 2009-2010. At number 4 is Kajiado Central with Joseph Nkaiseri, also able to account for 97% of the CDF funds given to him in 2009-2010 financial year. However, Joseph Nkaiseri cannot account for about 1 million shillings, or the money was badly used or cannot be accounted for in 2009-2010. At number 5, closing the top 5 best performing MPs in terms of CDF is Kajiado South, Kato Ole Metito, who also can account for 97% of the money given to him as CDF in 2009-2010. Kato Ole Metito also cannot account for or badly used about 1.3 million shillings in CDF money. Now, the bottom 5, those who did worst in CDF usage in the financial year 2009-2010 are number 30, Charity Kaloki Ngilu, Kitui Central, cannot account for 17 million shillings of CDF money in 2009-2010. That accounts for about 28% of the CDF allocation for Kitui Central in that financial year. Number 31 is Naivasha. John Mututo cannot account for about 26.8 million shillings, which is almost 39% of the CDF allocation for Naivasha constituency in that financial year. Number 32, Philip Kaloki, Professor Philip Kaloki of Kibwezi, cannot account for about 27 million shillings, which is a whopping 43% of the CDF allocation for Kibwezi constituency in the financial year 2009-2010. But the bottom two, the worst performers out of the 34 constituencies, they have even more startling figures. At number 33 out of 34 is Soita Shitanda, Member of Parliament for Malava, cannot account for about 44% of the CDF allocation for 2009-2010, or the money was badly used or wasted, according to the National Taxpayers Association. The worst performing Member of Parliament out of the 34 constituencies ranked by the NTA is Lina Jabi Kilimo, MP for Marakwet East. She cannot account for almost half of the CDF allocation for Marakwet East in 2009-2010, or the money was badly used or wasted according to the National Taxpayers Association rankings. Back to you, Sophia and Michael.
Thank you very much, Noah. Well, we move on to stories here in the city. A 6-story building collapsed in the city's Westlands area, leaving one construction worker seriously injured.
Reports indicate that one person may still be trapped inside. KTN's Ashamuilu reports.
A day at work turned dreadful. These construction workers now left traumatized with nothing to do but gaze at what was once their source of livelihood. This 6-story building was undergoing final touches before its inhabitants could move in. But at around midday, it came tumbling down, all its floors sinking and becoming barely recognizable to those who have been constructing it for the last 4 years.
Imeelekea kitu saa 6 hivi, tukasikia yenyewe nyumba inaendelea kuanguka, tukaitana wote tukakuja huku. Kukuja huku hivi, jamaa ametufungia gate hapa hataki tutoke. Tumerukia kwa maukute hivi ndio tukatoka. Hata vumbi ilikuwa imetuia hapa. Hauoni penye unaenda, gate imefungwa.
Mmoja wao ameumia, mkono yake umevunjika na amekatwa kwa uso, amekimbizwa Kenyatta National Hospital kwa matibabu. Huyu mwenzake hajulikani mahali hapo saa hizi.
The building situated near the Westlands Primary School is alleged to have been built using feeble material, but police say they will probe the issue further. And shortly after the police left the scene, GSU officers were deployed to restore law and order after the workers started protesting over unpaid wages.
Pesa zetu ndio tunataka tulipwe. Juu hata kama mimi hivi nguo zangu ziko huko ndani, zimebaki huko. Sasa nitaenda hivi kwa mtaa.
Efforts to interview the person behind the construction, who is also said to own some of the buildings next to the collapsed one, were fruitless. The incident comes soon after 2 buildings collapsed in Kisii and Bungoma, where 2 people lost their lives and scores others left injured. For KTN Prime, I'm Asha Mwilu.
More tragedy. A village in Mukureni, Nyeri County, is mourning the loss of an 8-month-old baby after a landslide hit the area last night following heavy rains that lasted close to 10 hours.
This comes just a day after the Kenya Meteorological Department warned of looming landslides in parts of the country, including Central Province.
Just a day after the Kenya Meteorological Department warned of impending landslides in areas most prone to heavy rainfall, a family is counting its losses after this brick house came tumbling down at about 11:30 p.m. in the evening, long after the family of 5 had called it a day and gone to bed. The heavy downpour that had gone on for close to 10 hours has not only cost the family of Bernard Wanjohi a home, but one of their twins, 8-month-old Anthony Kamau, lost his life in the tragedy.
Tukasikia duru ya kina mama wanapiga duru nyingi sana. Sasa kuamuka tukasikia kwamba watu yenu wamefunikwa na mchanga na nyinyi mnalala. Sasa ndio tukatoka tukaja hapa. Walipofika kule hospitali liko ikasemekana mtoto mmoja kati ya wale mapacha walikuwa wamenaswa na babao aliaga dunia.
The remaining 4 family members are currently recuperating at the Mokoroini District Hospital, some having sustained serious head and chest injuries. In a neighboring homestead still in Gadhaka village, one of the walls has partially caved in, rendering the house inhabitable for now. Acting District Commissioner Mokoroini, James Chacha, who arrived at the scene, said about 12 homesteads in the locality have been affected and the rest of the families in the landslide-prone areas might have to move to safer grounds.
Pahali tunaweza hama kwa sababu sisi tunagojea tu serikali tuambie ni wapi tutaenda. Sababu hakuna tukiwa hatutapata, si tutakaa hapa tu.
Tukikaa kama disaster committee itaweza kuamua mikakati ambayo itawekwa ili kuweza kuendeleza long-term plan.
The heavy rainfall is expected to continue for close to 1 month now, and whether the government is adequately prepared to deal with the tragedies that come with the season, that is entirely a different matter altogether. Just a day after the Kenya Meteorological Department warned of impending mudslides in parts like this, parts of Central, Rift Valley and Western, the residents have been advised to move to avert such disasters, but they know not where they are moving and they are waiting upon the government for answers. Carol Day reporting for KTN in Mokoroini, Nyeri County. And still another tragic incident, 3 children aged between 6 and 10 have been killed by armed raiders in Gombo area in Marsabit Central. 2 of the children were shot while the third was beheaded for apparently grazing their animals in another community's territory.
3 innocent lives lost. Mothers in mourning, and a village yet to come to terms with the senseless killing of 3 young boys. Their crime, grazing their goats in a field that did not belong to their community. 2 other boys who were with those killed managed to escape and delivered the news of the incident to their village in Gombo area, Marsabit Central. The raiders escaped the scene without taking even 1 goat from the herd. A contingent of police officers have been dispatched to the area in pursuit of the raiders. Local leaders and police have called for calm among the residents and peaceful coexistence between the communities. Catherine Omwando, KTN Prime.
In other news, a man in Kigumo who resembles the suspect behind the Ngara church grenade attack got a beating from members of the public in a case some may say could have been of mistaken identity. The man, who is said to have been walking in Muthithi Market, was stopped by residents of Kigumo who thought they recognized him from a photograph circulated by Police Commissioner Matthew Itera depicting the grenade attack suspect. It was not until security officials from a nearby police station came to his rescue that the mix-up was noted. While confirming the incident, Kigumo OCPD Saidi Mohammed said it was encouraging that members of the public were keen to see terror suspects behind bars. The Ngara grenade attack left 1 person dead and scores injured after an explosive was hurled into a church.
A reminder of tonight's big question, which we ask you whether you believe that Professor Nyang' Nyong'o should take political responsibility for the NHIF mess. Should Professor Nyang' Nyong'o take political responsibility for the NHIF mess?
Indeed, keep your SMSs coming. 8040 is our SMS number. We'll be sampling some of them at the end of this live newscast. You are watching KTN Prime, and after the break, our weekly political analysis Spotlight 2012 is coming up.
Breweries Limited, leaders in quality. And now, introducing another one from Home of Quality. triple distilled Crescent vodka, now available. The home of quality. Truly Kenyan.
I will pray for all the people of this land, and I will hold them close to me, yeah. Together one day there'll be sweet harmony, so let's be patient peacefully, hey, yeah. All I need is here, right here in Africa. Share to Sakime for here in Africa. Is here right here in Africa. To give your seas, oh, study Africa. And I love you, Africa. I love you, Africa. I love you, Africa. I love you, yeah. All I need is here right here in Africa. Share to secure me for here in Africa.
It affects both. Like for the chick, she'll have to drop from school simply because she's pregnant. And for the dude, he'll be affected psychologically because he was not set financially to take care of the child.
It will affect both of them. For the guy, it's obvious that he will be having pressures from the lady or the family of the lady, maybe asking why he can't or he should take responsibility for the baby.
For the chick, this really affects them, especially psychologically, simply because the self-esteem will go down and the dignity also.
New Maximum Hydration Body Lotion for Men delivers intense nourishment with no sticky feeling while providing 24 hours plus moisturization for skin prone to dryness. New Nivea for Men Maximum Hydration Body Lotion, the perfect defense for dry skin. Nivea for Men, what men want.
Here at Viceroy, we never stop passionately crafting our barrels and maturing our brandy the traditional way.
Viceroy Cocktails. Viceroy Sidecar. The ingredients are 25 milliliters of Viceroy brandy, 15 milliliters of honey water, 15 milliliters of lemon juice. Top with sparkling wine. Shake Viceroy brandy, honey syrup and lemon juice Strain into a martini glass. Then top with sparkling wine.
So you can keep on enjoying it.
With Co-op Bank. For every 5,000 shillings you deposit into a business account or 1,000 shillings you deposit into a personal account, you get an entry into the Co-op Bank on Geza Akiba Imarisha Maisha promotion. Win one of 3 brand new Toyota Hilux pickups, 6 Yamaha motorcycles, Samsung Galaxy tabs, daily cash prizes, or the grand prize of 5 million shillings. On Geza Akiba Imarisha Maisha Cooperative Bank.
Welcome back to KTN Prime. We're glad you're watching.
A centre in Eldoret town dreams of a day when street children will no longer be out on the streets, and that the term street children will be faded off. Tumaini Centre in Eldoret town struggles to rehabilitate street urchins through education, and with 47 children currently in schools within the town as a result of the centre's initiative, Tumaini officials believe that slowly but surely children will be removed from the streets. Mercy Kandiye was at the centre and brings us this story of children whose hope grows brighter by the day.
An informal gathering at the drop-in Tumaini Centre in Eldoret town. It is a routine for these street children to assemble here at 9. Their goal, to be fed so as to change their lives, not only health-wise, but their future too. The group of volunteers here are having a hard time in getting their attention, but this is no bother to them as long as they are not on the streets. Kimani, the program manager, says the society is one of the greatest hindrance to removing the children from the streets.
When you give a child money, when you give a child a job, to clean a hotel, those things make children to get money and a livelihood in the streets, and they find it very difficult to abandon because they're used to that money.
The age here varies from the older children to those born in the streets. Here they can start a new walk in life amid the tough challenges that meet them on a daily basis. They get food and education. There are 2 classes, the beginners and the extended class. The programs here rely heavily on volunteers. To get an attentive class is difficult, but these teachers do not give up. They have dreams. Theirs are put on the wall by each one of the children to remind them daily to aim for the sky. The system here is a bit different though.
And if they do the right things, they are given points. If they do the wrong things, those points are deducted. Once they have accumulated points enough and people give us clothes, mattresses or anything like that, shoes, the points are deducted. Like a simple t-shirt is 60 points, and a fancy sports shoe or a mattress can be 1,000 or more points. And therefore these children realize that things are not given for free, you have to earn them. It gives them a sense of ownership, it teaches them on saving.
Tumaini Centre also assists in health care of the children, family planning programs, and are currently working on an identification card distribution among the youth. When evening reaches, the children have to go back to the streets. But the result of having a community free of street urchins, only time will tell. For these boys seated here patiently in class, they hope that every single day attending classes here at Tumaini is a step closer to achieving their dreams. Mercy Kandi reporting for KTN at Tumaini Centre in Eldoret town.
And now to our weekly political feature, Spotlight 2012. This week we feature the newly unveiled United Democratic Forum, selected by Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi as his new political vehicle. Are there any combined forces behind the Mudavadi move? And is it part of a bigger plan yet to be unwrapped? Here's KTN's Asha Mwilu with Spotlight 2012.
Are the forces finally coming together against Prime Minister Raila Odinga, or is it mere political propaganda implying that Musalia Mudavadi's United Democratic Forum, William Ruto's United Republican Party and Uhuru Kenyatta's National Alliance Party of Kenya are just smokescreens put up by the G7 alliance? Some say that Mudavadi's divorce with the ODM party is the best thing that could have happened to Raila's political opponents. But is it part of an even bigger plan?
It is possible that Mudavadi was looking for a convenient excuse at a time so appropriate that would make him depart from that party without raising lots of eyebrows. And that, of course, if you reflect and tie it to what I had said, that he can't just join another party and become a presidential candidate, then it means that there has been so much rehearsal behind the curtains, so that whatever we see on the stage is just a culmination of the negotiations and discussions and the practices behind the curtains.
Just imagine, you think about it and just try and see how these theories that are created, how there's serious lack of imagination.
Even though the G7 is keeping everybody guessing on their final game plan, there's little doubt that they would combine forces in the last lap. Some of those who attended the launch of UDF at the KICC last week were there for the launch of the United Republican Party. They were seen in campaigns for the Kolomani MP Boni Halwale in the last by-election, and they have been attending G7 functions.
Whatever misfortune that ODM would face, whether real or imagined, would always be a blessing to their opponents, really the G7 side.
Wakati tulifunga safari ya kuondoka ODM, tulibebana na mizigo yetu yote. Hakuna chochote tuliacha pale nyuma.
With the Prime Minister being deserted by the Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi, it has got a heavy political undertone. And given that the other Pentagon members also deserted ODM, it shows then that politically the Prime Minister is wounded.
But if Mudavadi is a friend of the G7 alliance, then the calculation gets really complicated for those with ambitions in the G7. Even if, as claimed by some, Mudavadi is a fallback plan in case the ICC cases prevent Uhuru and Ruto from running for the presidency, where does this leave the other G7 members like Eugene Wamalwa and Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka?
Hiyo ruhusa mlinipa? Nipewe namba kwa hii timu ya G7? Na mimi nimesema sitarudi nyuma.
There would be quite some competition between him and Eugene Wamalwa, because they would both start haggling for space.
The moment you declare your interest to contest the presidency at a time when a particular government is in place, it goes on to indicate that you are in character and form at variance with the nature, the practices and the policies of that government of the day.
The Justice Minister had been the blue-eyed boy for the G7 alliance in Western region, and now all of a sudden Mudavadi is in the vicinity. And even more confusing for Eugene, some of Uhuru's former staunch allies in PNU are the brains behind Mudavadi's new outfit, the UDF.
As of now, I would not say that all these parties have a strategy. Maybe they have one opponent, but they still do not have one strategy.
Kenyan politicians have strongly embraced the character of amoeba. They do not have real legs and real form. They keep on having these pseudo legs, pseudo nature, pseudo beliefs, and even pseudo positions. And that is why whenever a new party is launched, they go there and show their support and even allegiance. The next day another party is formed, they go there and show the same character and support.
Conspicuously missing from Mudavadi's UDF launch last week were the G7 alliance frontrunners. Because all of Raila's political enemies are friends of the G7, their staying away was seen as a well-calculated move.
Some of their good friends were around, and maybe that sets some statement.
Analysts now believe that Kenyans should prepare for more alliances and mergers soon, despite the current apparent lineup of presidential candidates.
But look at the constitution now. It's very clear. It will be one running mate who will be named before the elections, not after. There is no option of lying to anyone or promising anyone the premiership or deputy premier or 2 vice presidents or 3 deputy premiers. So we do not have that advantage.
If it's true that all are against Raila, the question now is whether the Prime Minister has a counter strategy to survive the combined forces.
If you lose one of your fingers, you might say that you do not have the finger, but that does not make you weak. There are at times better ways of compensating for what one doesn't have.
He could be a very strong candidate, but in the end, if he does not put his house in order and strategize very well and create a positive impression in the minds of Kenyans, then he may end up being the president that Kenya never had.
For Spotlight 2012, I'm Asha Mwilu.
Another edition of Spotlight 2012 next week. It's time now for KTN Business Today.
And Zawadi Mudibo will be telling us about Kenya striking more oil.
NHIF contributions belong to our members, and we cannot allow any foreigners who are not stakeholders to operate it even for 1 day. So we are advising the government that if there is any corruption in that organization, the long arms of the government are not broken. Let them take appropriate action, charge those people who are corrupt with crimes, take them to court.
The one for drinking, not the one for cleaning. Which one? The herbal ones, not the processed ones. Which one?
Listen, you. I'm a lady, and you should be thankful that I do my own homework instead of sending you around. Can go.
Good. After you, madam.
No.
What do you mean, no?
My heart was broken.
By what?
Don't lie.
Avoid the hustle. Avoid the queues. Pay your electricity bill 2 days before the due date or earlier at any Easy Pay point anywhere in Kenya.
Good evening and welcome to KTN Business Today. My name is Zawadi Mudibo. Now, just before we start off our news bulletin this evening, we have information that shareholders, a key shareholder of Kenol Kobil, that is Puma Energy, has just signed an agreement, an exclusive agreement with Kenol Kobil to offload its shares. The company is one of the major shareholders of the oil marketer, and it's majorly Kenyan owned, and so that means Kenyans will be looking forward to that stake if it's approved by the Capital Markets Authority. Now, moving on, the National Social Security Fund is set to reduce its investment in the real estate sector as it seeks to align its operations with regulatory requirements for its provident and retirement funds. This will see NSSF offload most of its property investments in the country, as well as sell off land parcels in its portfolio. Michael Karanja has details of that story.
With the Retirement Benefits Authority requirement for pension schemes not to hold more than 30% of the investment portfolio in the real estate sector, NSSF has now started to offload most of the property in its books. Lined up for sale include View Park Towers and Hazina Towers, valued at 1.8 and 1 billion shillings respectively. Earlier today, the fund issued title deeds to homeowners in Hazina Estate who purchased houses through its tenant purchase scheme, and is set to replicate the same in Embakasi's Nyayo Estate. NSSF has so far reduced its holding in property from 63% in 2004 to the current 32%.
But I must confirm
that we as NSSF are committed to ensuring that we abide by the best investment practices in the world.
The 365 housing unit estate of Azina has been in the news over the last couple of months as a protracted battle between NSSF and Sololo outlets, a firm linked to Lugari MP Cyrus Jirongo, over the ownership of the estate. But the move today by NSSF to finally issue title deeds could come as a relief to homeowners who have waited for over 15 years.
Reassuring the residents of Azina that there will be no problem in regard to the ownership of this estate. There is no dispute that the estate was sold to us by Sololo.
NSSF entered into an agreement with Sololo to acquire the stall project at 1.2 billion shillings, payable in installments, but the firm later increased the selling price to 2.65 billion shillings in 1993, citing a jump in material cost. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
Now, barely 2 months after announcing a major oil find in Kenya, Tullow Oil says it has found more oil after deepening the Ngamia 1 well to 1,515 meters from the initial 1,041 meters. Now, Tullow has encountered a total net oil pay in excess of 100 meters across multiple reservoir zones in the Ngamia 1 well over a gross oil-bearing interval of 650 meters. The East African region has become a hotspot for oil and gas exploration in recent years.
The government is determined not to fall in the pitfalls which have befallen other countries that have discovered oil. It is generally known that oil can either be a blessing or a curse. I know countries I don't want to mention where oil has just been a curse, causing most suffering to the people who are supposed to be beneficiaries. But I also know of other African countries where oil is a blessing, where the revenue from the oil production has been used to the benefit of the people of those countries.
Well, indeed, we hope that oil will be a blessing to Kenya. Now, World Bank has announced Makhtar Diop as its new vice president for Africa. Diop is a Senegalese national who was previously in the country as a director for Brazil, having more than 25 years of development experience. Prior to joining the bank in 2011, Diop worked at the International Monetary Fund and served as Minister of Finance for Senegal, as well as chair of the West African Monetary Union Board of Finance Ministers. Makhtar Diop held various senior positions, including country director for Kenya. Now, moving on, Kenya's low-income consumers are set to be the key drivers for growth in the country's dairy industry if they harness opportunities in dairy processing. This is according to Food Processing and Packaging Solutions company Tetra Pak in its annual Global Dairy Index. Now, the Kenya dairy industry suffered a milk shortage that hit the Kenyan market in the recent weeks, leading to an increase in milk prices that saw a 500 milliliter packet retail as high as 50 shillings, up from 35 shillings, sending many into panic buying. Boni Tunya with that report.